Hello, everybody, and welcome to my Streets of New Capenna pre-release primer. In this video, I'm going to be giving you all of the information that you need to know before you head to your local game store for your pre-release event. But before I dive in, I want to remind you that if you enjoy this video, be sure to hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel for more content, and comment below with your questions and thoughts. Let's get started. When you show up at your pre-release, you will receive a pre-release kit with the following: 5 draft boosters, which is a normal booster pack, 1 family booster, which is a seeded booster pack that gives you a much higher chance of being able to play the family, also known as a color combination of your choice in the event, and then 1 stamped promo card, which is not only a nice memento for the event, but also a hopefully powerful card that you can include in your deck. Your kit will also include a spin down die and then the box itself, which you can use to keep track of your life total and store your cards respectively. So, what are you going to do once you have all of these cards? Well, you're going to want to build your deck. And to do so, I recommend a 3-step process. First, you're going to want to choose the family that you would like to play in the event. Usually the game store will let you choose your pre-release kit so that you can have that seeded booster to help you play the family of your choice. So choosing your family is a key step of the process at your pre-release that is very unique to pre-release events. Second, you're going to want to sort your cards so you'll know where all of your power level lies so you can build a better deck. And then finally, you're going to want to build the deck itself. So I'm going to be covering all of those now. So first things first, you're going to want to choose your family. I'm going to be talking about all of the families and the mechanics associated with them in the next section of this video. But the first thing you're going to want to do is choose this family. And so make sure before you show up to your pre-release, you have some sort of idea of the family you'd like to play and also kind of your backup family or backup families, because sometimes the store will run out of that particular pre-release kit if it's a particularly popular family. So second, you're going to want to sort your cards. So you open up all of your booster packs, and then I like to use a 3-tiered system where you sort your cards by color, but also from best to worst within that color, using 3 general tiers. The best cards, the cards you're going to want to make sure you play if you play that color, they're the cards that kind of make you want to play that color. So you're just like bomb rares, your best removal spells, things like that. Then you have all of your solid cards, which are the cards that you're going to play if you play that color, but they're not really like making you want to play that color particularly. And then you have your weak cards, which you might play if you play that color, if you have specific conditions that are met or things of that nature. So you do that for each color. So you sort your white cards from best to worst, your blue cards from best to worst, using these general 3 tiers, and then go forward with your red cards, your green cards, your black cards, your multicolored cards, your colorless cards, and then things of that nature. And that's how I like to sort my cards. The next thing you want to do is build your deck, and you're going to want to follow these general guidelines. You're going to want to play 2 to 3 colors. Because Streets of New Capenna does incentivize playing 3 colors, you're going to play 3 colors more often than you end up playing 2 colors in this sort of format. You're also going to want to play 17 to 18 lands. If your mana is a little bit more dicey, sometimes playing an extra land can help. And then finally, you're going to want to play 13 or more creatures. That's just generally a good baseline to make sure that you are impacting the board with your cards. Sometimes it's easy to get lost in the woods and just play a bunch of card draw spells or combat tricks and things like that, and then realize that you don't have enough creatures to actually win the game. So if you are looking to have a more consistent gameplay experience, just make sure you do include creatures so that your deck can actually end the game. So now we're going to talk about the particular families so that you'll know maybe which one you want to pick for your pre-release. The first one is the Obscura family. The key word that is associated with Obscura is connive, which is a mechanic that is attached to creatures, and whenever that creature does a particular thing and connives, you draw a card, then discard a card, and if you discard a non-land card, you put a +1/+1 counter on that creature. So Echo Inspector has connive attached to its enters the battlefield effect. And the thing that Obscura is going to do is be a more controlling color combination, because in the late game, conniving is very powerful because every land you draw is basically a blank. So if you're able to loot those away, which is drawing and discarding, you're able to have more spells than your opponent and do well in the late game. So Obscura is a nice little controlling color combination thanks to connive. The next family is the Maestros, which has the featured keyword of casualty, which lets you sacrifice a creature to copy your instants and sorcery spells. So if you are playing the Maestros, you're going to want to have some expendable creatures. Maybe they're creatures that have an enters the battlefield ability or a death ability. Maybe you got the creature as like part of getting more than one creature for one card, and then you're going to want to be able to line up your instants and sorceries to get maximum value with your casualty cards. So if you like slinging instants and sorceries, the Maestros may be for you. The next family is the Riveteers. They are one of the more aggressive families on New Capenna. Their keyword is the Blitz. ability, and Blitz is an alternative cast to casting a creature that if you cast it for its Blitz cost, it gains haste, and when that creature dies, you draw a card, you sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. So you get a temporary threat that could potentially push some damage when your opponent doesn't expect it, but then you do lose that card at the end of that turn. So it's a nice, interesting, aggressive strategy when you're using those Blitz cards, and there's also some sacrifice synergies built into the Riveteers because those Blitz creatures do sacrifice themselves, and there are other cards that care about sacrifice. So if you like sacrifice, you like aggression, and you think the alternative casting costs provide some interesting gameplay decisions, the Riveteers could be for you. The next family is the Cabaretti. They are all about creatures, and their keyword is the Alliance keyword, which is whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you get some sort of benefit. So you might get a +1/+1 counter on your creature. You might gain some life. You might deal some damage to your opponent. Your creature might get a temporary stats boost. Those are the sorts of things you can expect from Alliance. So if you like having tons of creatures in play, wide boards, a lot of combat, and things of that nature with tons of creatures on your side of the battlefield, then the Cabaretti may be for you. And then finally, there is the Brokers. Their key mechanic is the shield counter. And the shield counter is a counter that goes on a creature, and if that creature would be dealt damage or destroyed, instead you remove a shield counter from that creature. So it basically protects your creatures for kind of their first death, so you get that first death free rolled for you, and it just makes your creatures extra resilient. It gives you a lot of cool decisions to make with whether you want to enter combat because you will lose your shield counter and then maybe you want to keep it for later, or things of that nature. So if you like having resilient creatures and threats of that nature, and also kind of annoying your opponents by making them kill all of your stuff twice, then maybe the Brokers are for you. So now that we've talked about all of the families, we're going to talk about mana bases, because as you noticed, all of those families are 3 colors. And so when you're building your mana base, there are several different things you want to be thinking about. First of all, for a main color, you're going to want to have 8 or more sources for that color in an ideal world. A source of a color is like a basic land that taps for that color, a land that can, a card or something that can search for that sort of land, or things of that nature. So you're going to want to have 8 or more sources of your main colors if you can. If you're splashing, you're going to want to have 3 or more sources, and the more cards you're splashing, the more sources. So if you have only 1 card you're splashing, you're going to want to have 3 sources, generally speaking. And if you have 2 cards you're splashing, you'll want to go to have maybe 4 sources, and kind of it goes up like that. Now, one of the key aspects of building a mana base is just having lands that can tap for multiple colors. So there are 5 lands like the Botanical Plaza for the allied color combinations that tap for 2 colors, and then you can sacrifice them to draw a card later on in the game. So those are quite nice. And there's also 5 lands that are kind of like mini evolving wilds almost, that can search for one of 3 different types of lands. They gain you a life, and they put that land onto the battlefield tapped. So those are also lands that you can look for if you are playing those families, and you can also even play them outside of that family. For example, Riveter's Outlook can search for a swamp, mountain, or forest card, which may sound like it is the perfect card for the Riveteers, which it really is. But if you're playing the Maestros, you also care about being able to search up swamps or mountains. So you can still play cards like Riveteer's Outlook in your Maestros deck. So be aware of which lands you have in your sealed pool, because you are going to want to make sure that you can cast all of your cards. Many decks are going to be like 2 colors and then either a light splash or heavy splash into a 3rd color base, just because it's kind of hard to get 8+ sources of 3 different colors. Now, there's, in addition to lands, there are some spells that can help you cast your spells. There is a cycle of cards like Masked Bandits, which let you exile them from your hand to give a land the ability to tap for 3 different colors. So those are really useful if you are trying to play a particular family, because they'll give you a late game card that you can cast but also fix your mana early. There's the card Ominous Parcel, which is colorless, so all of the decks are going to have access to this one, and it can sacrifice itself to search for a basic land, so you can also count that as a colored source for any of the colors that you want to put in your deck. And then finally, there are some cards that generate treasure tokens, which are going to give you temporary access to a particular color. So if you're only splashing 1 card or maybe 2, treasure tokens can count as sources of that color, because you can just save that treasure token for casting your splashed card. If you are going deeper into a color, like maybe playing 3, 4, or even 5 cards of your 3rd color, then treasure tokens become less reliable as a means for splashing those cards, because you really are going to want to just have a permanent source that can always be tapping for that color. So when you're building your mana base, keep in mind 8 sources for a main color, 3 or more for splash colors, depending on how much you're splashing, and then try to stick to 2 or 3 colors with your deck. And then if you do need to go down to 7 sources, sometimes you just have to accept that you're going to have a sketchy mana base, and hopefully you're being compensated for a higher power level deck as a result. Now, I'm going to be talking about some general sealed tips, just so that if you've never played sealed or you don't play it very often, you have some stuff to keep in mind. First of all, sealed is slower than draft. If you do play a lot of draft and you're used to building your deck with a specific mana curve and all of that stuff, sealed is going to be slower than what you're used to, and that means that you don't really have to prioritize 2-drops as highly. You want to make sure your 2-drops actually scale into the late game so that if you top deck them on turn like 6 or 7, they're still going to be relevant and things of that nature. It also means that you don't have to worry about your opponents rushing you as quickly, so you can afford to fill your deck with more card advantage and stuff of that nature. Next, synergy is lower because you're not able to like construct your deck during the draft portion where you can like pick out the cards that you want. The synergy is generally going to be lower in sealed, which means that cards that just have good stats or are good on their own are generally going to be cards that are better in sealed than you might be used to. And then finally, you want to save your removal in sealed for your opponent's really strong cards. Because your opponent is opening 6 booster packs essentially, and they have their pre-release promo card, there's going to be a lot of rares and mythics flying around because your opponent is going to want to be putting those into their deck. And so you're able to maybe use your life total as a resource, take some extra damage earlier so that you can then have your removal spell at the ready when your opponent plays their massive flyer or late game threat or whatever that card may be. Make sure that you have that removal spell ready. And especially if you're playing best of 3, which your local game store, you're probably going to be playing best of 3 in your pre-release. If you see a really powerful card in game 1, make sure you save your removal to kill it in game 2 and 3 if you are able to do so. Next up, some general tips for a pre-release. For many, this may be the first pre-release that you play in paper because due to COVID, it's been hard for stores to have pre-release events or things of that nature. And also because Arena is going to be released a week after, so the pre-release may be one of your first times going to a pre-release in person. Here's just some general tips. First of all, read the cards. It can be really easy to forget what your cards do. You misuse them. Playing in paper means that the program of MTG Arena or wherever you like to play online, like Magic the Gathering online, isn't going to bail you out. The cards are going to have to, like, you're not going to get bailed out by the program essentially. So make sure you read the cards, read your opponent's cards. Even if you think you know what it doesn't hurt to double check. Next up, make clear plays. In paper, you're going to have to remember all of your own triggers. You want to make sure, and you have to remember all of your own phases and things of that nature. So you're going to want to make sure that you don't like do anything maybe like that tricks your opponent or makes things less clear for them, because if they want to respond to a certain thing and you don't say it properly, it's just going to lead to confusion. So make clear plays, make sure you remember your triggers, things of that nature. And then finally, be patient with others. Many people go to the pre-release as like one of their few times they play Magic in the whole set's life cycle, because it's just one of those big events that has a lot of players that are maybe not as like ingrained in the competitive side of things, or they don't play as much, so they might be a little bit newer, and it's just good to be patient with them. They're reading the cards for the first time, you're reading the cards for the first time in many cases, and so if players are playing a little bit slower or they're not sure exactly how their cards work, that's okay. Everyone's just there to have a good time enjoying the new set, and so make sure you're patient with others and make it a good gameplay experience for everybody involved. Anyway, that is going to do it for this pre-release primer. I really do hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching, and if you did make it all the way to the end of this video, remember to hit that like button, share the video with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more content if you enjoyed. Also, comment with your questions, and if you made it all the way to this end of this video, in the comment section down below, leave hashtag Capenna is coming, because after the pre-release, the set is going to be released the week after in full for drafting, and just playing with standard and all the constructed formats and things like that. So the Capenna is just around the corner, and so leave hashtag Capenna is coming to let me know you're excited and that you enjoyed the video and all of that good stuff. Anyway, that is going to do it for this one. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm really looking forward to playing at my own pre-release. I hope you are as well, and I can't wait to hear how it all goes for everybody, and I hope this video helped you out. Anyway, that's going to do it for this one. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will talk to you next time.